Hey guys, today we're going to start the second lesson, um, which is going to be talking about the relationships between the different figures and elements that you studied earlier this week. So the first thing we're going to start out with, and you see on your screen there, is just a quick organizer that goes over all of the different figures. It goes through the description, the figure, and the symbol or label that we talked about that is important in geometry. So the first relationship that we're going to talk about really deals with the first figure element there, which is a point. So there are two different vocabulary words or two different ways that we reference the relationships between points within a picture. So the first here is collinear, and these are points that lie on the same line. So if I was looking at, let's say, this line in particular, we're looking for all the points on there that is part of that line. Now, just to kind of point out to you, B looks like it's kind of hovering in the middle here. And what that just basically is, take that back out so you can see it is establishing the point that is right there in the cross section. So that is actually a point on that same line. So if I was going to fill out the organizer to the right for collinear points, I could say we have point A, point B, and point C. Those are all considered on the same line. And again, in geometry, there are more than one option usually. So I could also be looking at this line right here and say collinear points along that line are D, B, and point E. Now notice I'm still using all capitals, and I'm also using that symbol of just the dot to reference that I'm looking at a point. Questions can also just be asking you something like, are point D and point A collinear? So if I look on my graph there, I'm looking at the question, is point D collinear with point A? Hopefully you can see that those are not collinear. Those are actually referencing the second term, which are points that do not lie on the same line. So point D and point A would be an example of non-collinear. And guys, there's 5 points on our figure here. So there's a couple different options when we're talking about non-collinear and collinear. So you're basically just looking for points that are not on the same line. So throwing out one more example for you, we could say something for my orange line here on C. We could also say it's non-collinear with E. So those are just some examples there for you. All right, so this next slide, this is going to be part of your assignment, and I'm going to scoot the terms over here. Again, collinear are points that are on the same line. Non-collinear are points that do not lie on the same line. So on your guided note sheet, you will see these two sections kind of filled in here. They'll be yellow, highlighted yellow on your note sheet. So we're going to go through the entire lesson, but what you're going to do for your assignment is you're going to go through and you're going to fill out on your guided notes these practice activities. So we're not actually going to do this one together. Again, you're going to work on it on your own after you've completed the lesson and done any of the other activities that you feel like you might need to feel confident with this. All right, so looking back at that organizer, the next kind of figure that we're going to be looking at as far as relationships is the one clear down on the bottom, the plane. And if you remember, we talked about how it's a flat surface that extends to infinity in each direction. So for us in geometry, we kind of say that it looks like a slanted piece of paper. And we label it by using 3 letters, 3 capital points within that plane. So this example here, we have plane EFG, or you also can call it plane and use that capital letter that's often found in the top right-hand corner of the, quote, piece of paper. All right, so looking at the relationships here. So we have coplanar and non-coplanar. So again, we're looking at things that are on the same plane, things that are not on the same plane. Co means on the same plane. So if I'm looking at this blue structure, this blue plane here up top, to just give you some examples. Points on the same plane. So we have 5 points here. We've got E, we've got L, we've got A, and we've got N. Those are actually our 4 coplanar points. Even though E and N are on the tip or on the edge of that paper, they're still considered to be coplanar. Okay, so that's an important note, that even if they're just touching the corner, that's still considered a point. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in our organizer. Let me switch to orange here so that you can see. So we're looking at point E. And notice how I'm still labeling the points. The term coplanar is just stating its location. Oh, so I have point A. I lost my paper there. And then last but not least, we have the point N. Now you don't have to label all of them. I'm labeling all of them to show you coplanar, but you have to make sure that you're paying attention to what the direction or what the question's asking you. It may ask you to only label 2 points that are coplanar, or ask you simply if N, point N, and point A are coplanar, and in that case your answer would be yes. All right, taking a look at the second vocab here, non-coplanar. So non means points that do not lie on the same plane. Okay, so if you notice, there's only kind of one point that we haven't discussed, and it's this point S, which is kind of floating above our figure there. That would be considered a non-coplanar point only when you are comparing it to another point. So again, if I would be looking to label non-coplanar points, I would say something like point S and point, again, any one of those orange dots would work because those are all within the plane. So I could say S and point E. I could also say point S and point A. Those are non-coplanar. And again, I'm choosing one that's not on the same plane as the other one. All right, so same kind of idea. These terms, I just want to make sure that we kind of understand what they mean because they will be used in geometry. So when you get to your guided note sheet and pull it up, you'll see these examples for you written in. This section will be highlighted yellow, and this is your task to go ahead and tell me coplanar points and non-coplanar points. Now you might be looking at that figure on the left and thinking, wow, that looks a lot different than the one we did. Kind of take a look at it as you've got a yellow sheet of paper, green sheet of paper and a purple sheet of paper that are crossed, and anything on the green is not on the pink, so those would be non-coplanar. Everything that falls within the same color, like that purple paper, those would be considered coplanar points. And guys, I gave you 4 spaces, so you could fill out, for example, you could say G and E are coplanar, and then move on to the next one and write 2 points that are coplanar here. There's definitely more than 4 options. So just give me 4 that you see. And then the same for non-coplanar. The options are probably way farther than 4, but give me an example of a pair of points that are non-coplanar. Okay, so that's the second lesson, just discussing those relationships between the important figures. So as I mentioned, your next step will be, review any of the additional activities online if you feel like you need a little more practice with it. Look over the guided notes and examples, and then when you're ready, your assignment or activity for the week for this lesson would be to go back to the guided note sheet when you pull it up and fill in those yellow sections, the you try parts, and then go ahead and submit that for your grade. Again, if you need any help, please reach out via Teams or the teacher inbox, and I'll be happy to help you. Thanks.